All right, and the runners have started. Tonight our two runners are nulldriver and RedCloak, and they will be racing Metroid Fusion 100%. They are both using the English version of the game, so we will be seeing a little bit slower text, but it can be read now.
That all-important story.
So the first thing we're going to be doing is going to be, first task in their way is going to be the climb. Climb is just a basic series of wall jumps you have to do. It's fairly difficult, and I don't think our runners are going to be too picky about whether they get it or not, since this is a race, but it's not uncommon to see runners reset to get a perfect climb if you want to have a good start to your run. So the first thing our runners will need to do is that they're going to be heading to kill the first enemy of the game. Pretty straightforward. They'll go into a room and they'll shoot a horn node and then leave. After that, they will be on their way to get the first item upgrade of the game, which will be the missile launcher. Now, throughout the game, there are a few little minor optimizations that our runners will be doing. If you'll notice that a lot of times they'll shoot right before they hit the ground. Now, this is referred to as shoot canceling, and shoot canceling is basically, as its namesake, you want to shoot right before you hit the ground, and whenever you do so, you'll land a few frames sooner than normal. This is just one of the many minor optimizations you'll see the runners do throughout the run to sort of help increase the gap. It doesn't seem like a huge amount of time early on, but it does add up over the course of the run. Now then, before our runners get there, they're going to have to put up with one more text box, and they will be grabbing the missile launcher. Now, once our runners get the missile launcher, they'll be able to kill a lot of enemies more efficiently, especially in the early game. A lot of the enemies can be annoying to deal with without a charge beam, if not even a lot of them are even undamageable. So the missile launcher is a pretty important item early on, especially the missile capacity. Our runners will actually have 3 more missile expansions going into the first sector, which is very important, as it helps with consistency of getting through the sector, and it makes you have a little bit easier time of getting through the sector as well.
Yeah, it may not seem like it, but those 5 missiles can make such a difference compared to any percent.
First thing we're just going to do is get to show off the missile launcher by blowing open a hole in the wall. And there are a lot of enemies throughout the game where you just kind of have to deal with them with certain weapons, or else you can't really progress. That green barrier that was in the way is pretty much only damageable with the missiles, so... you need to be very cautious of your ammo, which granted, this is 100%, they're not going to have to worry about any ammo issues, I can guarantee you. Maybe a little bit in Sector 1, but after that, they're not really going to be worrying about ammo too much. Charge Beam allows you to kill most enemies anyway, and they'll be having that by the end of Sector 1.
Nulldriver with some pretty good eye door luck, as it's RNG for how many shots the eye door will shoot, and you need 3 missiles to kill it, so 4 beams potentially per before the eye opens. You can have up to 12 beams shot out.
So you want to be wary of Idor RNG. You can manage to hit it with 2 missiles at once and do double damage, so you don't have to worry about as many phases, but most of the time you kind of have to worry about that, dealing with the RNG there. So the boss fight that you just saw that lasted no more than a few seconds there is Arachnus, who's the very first boss of the game. Now the fight is pretty straightforward. You just want to unload missiles into him while he's standing up and shooting at you. And you want to hope that he doesn't roll at all. If he doesn't roll at all, it's a pretty easy kill. But if he does roll, he can cause you to lose like 2 of your missiles. And if you run out of missiles against him, you have to use your beam, which is really slow. And in 100%, you actually technically have 1 less missile than you do in any percent because you had to use it to get a second energy tank. So the fight's a teeny bit harder in 100%, at least for killing him quickly. Now at this point, both our runners are on their way to Sector 1. They're going to take a short... They got the Morphball upgrade, so they can go into small holes now, and you're going to see them take a little bit of a shortcut and pick up a missile expansion right before they go to the main elevator and subsequently to Sector 1. And of course, gotta watch a little bit of the cutscene first, where the SAX just goes through and wrecks the elevator.
And the open door now.
Which to me makes kind of weird little sense that the elevator just happened to turn off when Samus is at the bottom. Like, I'm confused in how elevators work in this game. I'm not really sure why it just waits until she lands and doesn't go off in the middle of the flight, but I'm just gonna say elevator magic. So Sector 1, as I've already explained, it's a pretty straightforward sector. There are these 4 little vents that the runners will have to destroy. The first 3 or so will be destroyed primarily by missiles, and the last 2 they'll be using the charge beam on them. Well, the last one they may opt to use missiles, but they have the option of either the charge beam or the missiles on the last one. But the 4th one they will definitely be using the charge beam on it because it's quicker than using the missiles, and I'll explain why once they get there. But as you can see here, you're going to start to see them using a lot of missiles because they have to use them on the events and they have to use them to kill some enemies quickly. Plus there's an extra energy tank they'll have to grab where depending on what strategy they use, they may end up spending more missiles than normal.
Yes, the first part of this game, no matter if it's any percent or 100%, it's all about resource management.
Granted, this is mitigated a lot by 100% as you get the strong missile count and other factors early on, but the first few bits of the game are very similar to their 80% equivalent. This room nulldriver just went through is a little bit of a dangerous room where their pirates are on the right side of the wall. It's not really been much of a big deal in 100% due to the 3E tanks, but it's a common place that can cause you to mess up a lot and potentially die, especially if you're in 80%. So as the number of pirates on the wall is pretty much RNG. Looks like Null took a bit of a stop there to try and get the green X from the ore node, but the X that gets released by the enemy when it gets destroyed is not necessarily going to be the same as when it was formed. Simply put, the way the game determines which kind of X you're gonna get is basically based on, do you have full health, do you have full missiles? If you don't have full of either, it's pretty much random what's gonna toss at you. But if you have full health, you're only gonna get missile drops. If you have full missiles, you're only gonna get you're only gonna get health drops. There's also the possibility of getting a red X, which is extremely rare, except in a few spots where you're guaranteed to get one that will pretty much heal most of your energy and most of your missiles back.
I believe the chance for red X is what, 1 in 1024?
It's tiny. I don't know the exact number offhand, but it's tiny. So Null is just gonna take out the Idor the old-fashioned way, not gonna go for any doubles here. Yeah, I was about to say, you may want to be a little more careful because if you exhaust too many missiles, you generally want to fire missiles as soon as possible because of, ooh, this is really,
Jeez.
Yeah, this is really bad RNG. Okay, he got a lot better RNG in that last door, but that door was not being very nice, unfortunately. That's kind of the trade-off this early on in the game. Now once they get Charge Beam, the Idors won't be as big of an issue, because Charge Beam and later on Super Missiles, when they get them, will actually be one hit from either of those two weapons. So now that Null has a Charge Beam, he's not going to have to worry about Idors as much. He still has to worry about them shooting up to 4 beams, but only have to worry about 1 round instead of the 3 they have to worry about right now.
Yes, unlike other Metroid games, like Zero Mission especially, the Charge Beam is a lot more useful.
Yeah, Charge Beam in this game is fairly powerful. It's, for one, it kind of benefits from, you can't really skip any of the major items in Fusion anyway. They made them, it's weird, they changed the major items to where they're not really part of the percentage anymore. So you kind of have to go in and you have to pick up every single one of them. And if you try to skip anything, well, there's not really many items that are skippable, and even if you could, the game doesn't handle it well. So you basically have to grab every major item in the game because of the event system. But also because they took away them from counting for the percent, they had to add in like quite a few extra items to the game, which means you're going to see an excessive amount of power bombs and energy tanks. As they apparently decided to just increase the energy tanks and power bomb counts the most. So that's sort of another weird difference between Fusion and Zero Mission, in that in Zero Mission 100%, power bombs can be pretty annoying to deal with and trying to get enough of them towards the cleanup area, versus in Fusion, where, well, you end up with 74 of them, so. But now our runners are exiting out of Sector 1 and will be heading on to Sector 2, where they will probably, you'll start to see a bit more variance in Sector 2. There are 3 extra items they'll need to take a detour for, and this is around the point where you start to see more noticeable differences between 100% and any percent, starting with Sector 2. Now, the first upgrade the runners will be getting in Sector 2 will be the bomb upgrade, which is pretty infamous in the Metroid franchise. Bombs will probably unlock most of, I would say that bombs unlock probably the most new areas in this game. They'll be using it to they'll pretty much be using it for every item that they take a detour for in this. And every single time you get a new upgrade, the game likes to make you use it, so there will be quite a lot of bombing on the way, but using the bombs along the way, but after that it goes down a lot. So you'll still see the bombs being used fairly frequently, but after that it tones down in usage. especially towards end game, as once they get the screw attack upgrade, which they'll get, it's pretty much the last boss before cleanup. The screw attack will allow them to break bomb blocks, so. The game sort of likes to give you alternate ways to destroy blocks or certain enemies in some areas. Like most of those barrier enemies, there are 3 different types of barrier enemies you've seen. You've already seen the standard missile one. There's a super missile one, and there is a power bomb one. But interesting, all 3 of them can actually be destroyed by the Shine Spark. So it's another example of where runners have a bit of an option there. There's actually a power bomb tank you can get early with that, but it's a bit slower to do it that way.
And it doesn't give you power bombs, it just gives you the expansion.
Yeah, that's kind of the other major point too, is even if you could get like an item early, the game doesn't actually allow you to use any of the expansions until you picked up the main item. So you need to get the missile launcher from the data room before you can use any missiles, and you have to get the power bomb from the data room as well before you're allowed to use it. So Null is going to be taking the first detour of Sector 2 and picking up a missile expansion here. In fact, all 3 of the extra items they're going to be grabbing here, if you do not count the E-Tank at the end, are going to be missile expansions. As I just mentioned, there is an E-Tank at the end that they'll be grabbing, but that one, some runners do pick that up in 80%, so it's pretty much not out of the way, so it's literally right in your way actually. So they won't really need to take a detour to grab that one.
RedCloak has to be careful now with the sword enemies in Sector 2. It really shows the difficulty that changes after Super Metroid and then back to Zero Mission. Fusion's a lot harder game. You take... Oh yes, there he goes.
So that was actually a really smart save on RedCloak's part there.
But yes,
He is not taking... Yeah, go ahead.
A lot harder game compared to Super Metroid and Zero Mission. Just in general, casually, and 80% at first. With the increased damage that all the enemies do, it's tough sometimes just to get through rooms without taking major damage.
Yeah, as I said, they added an excessive amount of E-Tanks, but they did compensate for it a little bit by making some of the most damaging enemies in the franchise. There is a later enemy where if you get hit by its stinger, it does around, I believe it's 137 damage.
I believe that's close.
Now, as we said, this is 100%, and the further on they get in the game, the less risk of death there is. So after this sector, the risk of death probably goes down pretty much exponentially. So I wouldn't expect our runners to have too many difficulties once they get out of here. Sector 4 is the next sector, and there are a few spots in it that can be dangerous, but after that, they pretty much have enough E-Tanks to tank anything that gets thrown at them. Now, nulldriver is fighting the Sector 2 boss, which is called Zazby. Now, Zazby does a random number of jumps every phase, and it can either give you a basically empty jump, or it can give you a damaging jump, where the damaging jump's what you want. He'll stop above you, and you're actually able to shoot him and damage him. And now, important thing to note, it doesn't really matter how many missiles you throw up there. Each phase has a fixed amount of damage, and once you deal enough damage to take down the phase, you have to wait. You have to go through all the phases, so you can't really skip a phase by doing enough damage. It would be nice if you could because of the RNG, but unfortunately you can't, so... And now each phase is like a certain different number of set jumps that Zazby will go through. I honestly cannot remember the exact numbers offhand, but I believe most of the phases run between 1 to 3 jumps. And now, nulldriver, I wonder if he's going to go for this. Yeah, it looks like he is not. I think he would have went for it if... well, I don't know. He might not even be aware that RedCloak died. If he was watching, if he was aware that RedCloak died, I could see him deciding to go the safe strat there, so he don't have to worry about risk of death, but he may have not been aware at all. It's kind of hard to tell, because some of the runners have opted to not go for SAX skip just for safety reasons alone. And if Null was aware that RedCloak died, that would just incentivize him further to not risk it. Considering Null hasn't saved or anything, as far as I'm aware, so if he had died at sack skip, that he would have been about 20 minutes behind.
It's a very risky thing to do, even with 100%. Where you can tank the hits, you can still die if you mess up. So it's probably best that he waited.
Alright, so Null will be on his way to Sector 4, and Sector 4 is the next sector. It's pretty straightforward. They're going to take a few more detours than they took last time, and they're also going to have to fight a boss again. That will be Ceres, which will give them speed booster after they defeat him. And we'll get into Ceres once we get a little bit closer. But for now, let's talk about Sector 4 a little bit more. They have a few things to worry about in the sector. One of which is the water. It's a water sector, and the water is electrified. Now, the electrified water does a decent amount of damage, but between the 100% E-tanks and not really needing to be in the water too long, that's not really going to affect them very much. In fact, there are a few spots where they're actually going to intentionally go through the electric water in order to move a little bit faster. So... Alright, and RedCloak has defeated Zosby now. I do not think RedCloak's going to go for sack skip, but we'll see. Alright, let's see if RedCloak goes for it. And he is not. He is taking the safe strat here. So to comment on another technique that's in the game that you saw Null use, the game has what's called a pseudo screw attack, and this is, I believe this has been in some super. And the pseudo screw attack is whenever you're charging up your charge beam and you run into an enemy, and you jump into an enemy with a spin jump. Whenever you do this, if your charge beam does enough damage, you will basically kill the enemy instantly without having to put up with dealing with actually like it shooting any projectiles out at you or anything else that can annoy you. This is used a lot especially whenever a runner may be wall jumping between multiple walls with enemies possibly spawning in the way. This makes it a little bit easier to deal with some enemies in certain spots. Especially given that going into a wall jump automatically enters you into a spin jump. So if there's an enemy that's kind of close and that's hard to hit, you can wall jump off a wall and hopefully do the pseudo screw attack into the enemy and kill it before it annoys you with any projectiles or just damaging you in general. Now, Null having a bit of difficulty getting this missile tank here. As said, you kind of have to go up with water physics without gravity suit, and that can be annoying to deal with in some places, especially rooms like that where there are a lot of enemies. You'll notice that for rooms with expansions, there are a few little common patterns they like to do, where you'll see a lot of rooms where you have to kill an enemy, wait for it to respawn, and kill it again in order to unlock an item, and then there's some where they'll just toss a frenzy number of enemies at you have to deal with. You'll see a few different patterns like that commonly throughout the game and throughout this run. Knowing how to move through those rooms quickly and being able to actually do it consistently can be a pretty big time saver overall. Minor things like that add up a lot in Metroid Fusion.
And now that Noel's good at Ceres, we should probably talk about how charge beam affects Ceres.
Yeah, so the Ceres boss fight basically works like this. You have the last phase is the Core X fight, like usual. So first phase is the different one. And the first phase, Ceres the very first one of these, is the same every time. Ceres follows a pattern and he always ends up in that exact spot every single time for the first round. After that, his patterns become random. Now once you know his patterns and you can see them, you can react to some of them. And usually, if you know what you're doing, you can intercept his patterns like that. But another important factor is, you noticed, nulldriver was able to kill Ceres in 2 hits. Now the reason for this is because Ceres, the charge beam has basically three parts to it. There is a top part, and there's a bottom part, and there is the flare. The flare is basically the outside of the beam, and it's generally, I believe it's the weakest part damage-wise.
It
And
does
the top
6
and
damage.
bottom, yeah. And the top and bottom parts are pretty self-explanatory. I believe they're 10 damage each, offhand.
Yes. So if you connect with a single charge shot and flare, it's 26 damage. Meanwhile, normal missiles only do 10. And Ceres has 50 health, I believe. So if you're able to hit Ceres with 2 fully charged shots with the flare, it puts him over his max health, and you can kill him in 2 rounds.
The downside is, because of how fast Ceres moves, a lot of times you may end up missing the shot, and subsequently you have to possibly face Ceres for more than 2 rounds. But if everything goes perfectly, you should kill Ceres within the first 2 hits, and you won't put up with dealing with any extra rounds. And depending on how unfamiliar you are with the patterns, every extra round can be a very big time sink. So you want to make sure you're aware of Ceres' patterns and that you're capable of reacting them quickly and placing the shot correctly. Now, nulldriver is on his way out of the sector. Right before he does, though, he will have to pick up one more item here. We're going to actually see him shine spark in the water, and notably, the shine spark isn't really affected by the water physics as far as I'm aware, so at least it does not look any slower than a regular shine spark. So that is actually the quickest way to get that missile expansion there, because trying to run through it in water physics is not fun for anyone. So that's actually a pretty clever strategy you can do there to get to that item early without having to worry about dealing with any water physics. And now again, you see a lot of that shoot canceling going on. Again, minor stuff like that. It adds up over the run. And another small little thing here is that whenever you have the speed booster, you can actually store the shine spark on the navigational platform where it gives you the text details. And by doing that, you can actually go in and you can actually do a shine spark off the platform and do a little jump. And that allows you to, saves you a little bit of time whenever you're coming out of the sector. Now, unfortunately, it appears that RedCloak did not get the initial pattern correctly, and ooh, that was definitely not a hit.
Yeah, that was not.
Unfortunately, I think he's going to take an extra round or 2 here. And that one was questionable too. I don't know about that one. I also have no way of telling because Saris is at a weird health number, so.
Oh, the pause buffer. But he got it.
Alright, so he only had to do it with one extra round there, so that's pretty good. And he also was able to get the round pretty fast as well, so that also helped out a lot. So that's not going to be a huge time loss, I don't believe. And now RedCloak has the speed booster, and he'll be going to get 2 more items along the same items that we saw Null pick up on the way out, and we'll be heading on his way to Sector 3. Now in Sector 3, the runners will be picking up a few items like usual, and they'll also be getting the Super Missile upgrade. Super Missiles basically are fairly damaging, and we'll actually see them used instead of the Charge Beam on the first boss after they get it. And Super Missiles also will one-hit kill the Idors as well, so... At this point on, the Idors, you only have to worry about 1 round, regardless of which weapon you decide to use, so... Looks like RedCloak's having a bit of difficulty getting the low-height Shine Spark here. So notably, if you can actually Shine Spark when you're on the ground, and you can either do it by basically trying to Shine Spark right before you hit the ground, or by doing it, I guess you can just, usually the strategy there is spam A pretty quickly while you're underneath a low ceiling. This space, allowing you to Shine Spark across the ground allows you to sort of Shine Spark through long shafts that are small like that one where he got to, where he first used it on. And that is a lot faster, obviously, than the normal strategy, which is where you just have to run through that chamber and kill all the enemies on the way, and then get a speed booster on the way out. And Noel's about to say hi to Bob. Hi, Bob. So Bob is pretty infamous for being the only item in the game that you normally can't skip. As it turns out, you actually can skip him, and there's 2 different methods for it, but most of the time you're not going to be skipping Bob. And is Noel gonna get that? I don't think.
So Super Missiles do 30 damage, which is more than the Charge Beam does, even with connecting all the flare and both parts of the beam. So Super Missiles are going to be used a lot more than the Charge Beam for a little while.
In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think we're actually going to see the Super Missiles, or I don't think we're going to be seeing the Charge Beam used very much on any bosses until... Uh-oh, RedCloak, yeah, okay, he caught himself there a little bit. I think he went to an 8% mode there for a split second. So if you noticed, he got a low height there, and that is a very impressive low height. Unfortunately, it is a bit of a mistake in 100%, because you want to be able to get the Shine Spark and Shine Spark Cross to get that missile tank there. So... And nulldriver is now fighting the box, which is the Sector 3 boss. Notably, whenever you defeat this boss, it just runs away. It doesn't actually go into a 4X or anything. Primarily because I think the in-game explanation is it hasn't been affected by the X yet. But this boss is pretty straightforward. You want to just line yourself up so that whenever he jumps over you, you're right above him and can hit him with your super missiles. Again, in 100%, this boss fight is not really too much of a nuisance to deal with. But one important thing to note is that its legs are very infamous for blocking super missile shots, so you want to make sure you understand the spacing really well and where you need to stand to shoot those super missiles.
Oh no. Trying to do fancy charge beam strats.
Yeah, when you're going across that room and trying to store that Shine Spark, it can... Oops. Okay.
Ooh.
Let's not... No. No, we got this. You can make it. You can make it. And that is a terrible help to have going into Sector 6, but...
Yes, I'm interested to know if you want to take a recharge or not.
Don't make me look like a liar whenever I said you guys won't die. Alright, so Noah has a bit of low health here, but I'm pretty sure he should be fine throughout Sector 6. Sector 6 is a bit of a danger because there are these ice X's that Samus cannot absorb. If Samus absorbs them, she just takes, like, I believe it's a ton of damage. It's somewhere in like the 60-70 range, I think. So unfortunately, Null can be one-hit killed by those, but those can actually be stunned by shooting them with a beam or with a missile, I believe works as well. So it's generally a non-issue, and there's safe ways you can go through the sector and not have to worry about it. And Null may also opt to actually take a recharge station as well, especially if he's aware of the lead he has right now. Now the good news about this, even if Noel does not go for the refill, there is an energy tank that Noel will be grabbing along the way before the eye doors, so...
Unless, he messes up Zack skip.
Or if he goes down the wrong elevator, that's also a very viable option.
Oh, yes.
So, oops, bit of a minor mistake there. Noel went down the wrong elevator, so that's unfortunately going to cost a big chunk of time. But Noel figured it out pretty much immediately, so... Could have been worse. I have definitely had situations where I've gone down the wrong elevator and actually went into this sector, which was really bad, so...
That's been me plenty of times after the animals, which come later, going down Sector 1 again. Too many resets.
Alright, so the major item that Noel will be getting in here is the Varia suit, and the Varia suit will just allow Noel to go through any heated or any very cold sections. We didn't really run into any heated or cold rooms because the game doesn't force you to go through any, but they are there, and if you do not have the Varia suit, you will take damage from them. And a notable side effect of getting the Varia suit as well is that these ice X's that Noel is going to have to deal with will not do any damage to him anymore, and he'll just get health from them like normal. So Noel opted not to heal. As I said, this shouldn't be an issue, but hopefully, I think Noel is fine. Noel should be fine.
As long as you play pretty well and don't mess up anywhere, you can get through with no damage.
And I bet Noel's also, Noel's not going to shoot at the bottom block there. Or he's going to shoot at the bottom block and just...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
That is not good. Unfortunately, Noel ran into the Ice X there, and that was pretty much a side effect of... It doesn't seem like it, but that was actually pretty much a side effect of having to accidentally shoot out that Ice X that he shot out. But in the time it took him to stop and freeze that Ice X, the one that actually killed him was a bit lower, and he would have had to have morph balled underneath it in order to avoid it. So that was a bit of an unfortunate mistake there. And at this point, I believe Noel will be about 38 minutes behind based on the timer, so I don't think Noel's going to reset it and try and continue the race, unfortunately.
Yes, he just forfeited.
Alright, well, important to note that RedCloak still has to finish this run in order to win the tournament match, so still has to make it through the next few sectors without dying, and then without dying in late game. Though, as I said before, the further on they get, the easier it's going to be, so...
Oh.
Okay, so Noel is actually starting over, and to be honest, I kind of support this decision because the last save that RedCloak took was in Sector 2, and if RedCloak does die, if Noel can get to Sector 2 before that happens, or even if Noel can get there by the time that happens, Noel can actually take the lead and win the race.
I don't know that's going to happen. He still hasn't undone his forfeit.
And he reset back to the title screen, so I'm not sure what Null is doing, honestly.
I think he.
Okay, well, for the moment, I'm going to see what RedCloak is up to here. He's going to be going to Sector 6, hopefully having a bit better luck than Null did. The good news is he's going in there with more health, so even if he absorbs 1 or 2 X's by accident, he should still be fine. Now,
Yes.
I said... Oh, sorry, what?
No, I was just say Null has confirmed he's done with the race.
Okay, so at this point, it's up to RedCloak to finish the run. Now, as said, the things that RedCloak has still within the sector are the Ice X's, and there is one SAX encounter as well. Now, the SAX encounter is pretty straightforward. I do not know if Red will be going for the skip on it. I mean, it's an easy skip. There is a potential mistake that can be made that can be pretty costly, but you generally have enough energy to tank through it if it goes poorly. And getting to the first energy tank is pretty easy, especially with the health that Red has. You can actually grab a ton of the Ice X's and be fine.
So I couldn't tell, but I think he bombed. I couldn't tell if he bombed the block or not.
I am unsure. I think it's not, and we'll see. He may get it on the way out, possibly.
It wouldn't be that much of a time loss, just curious about it.
So yeah, actually, as we saw there, the Ice X was in a slightly different position than it was when Null was in the room. And I believe that was primarily just because Null had to stop and shoot that Ice X that he accidentally exposed. So again, just even things that you don't really think about, they can negatively affect you. Right, and now we are waiting to see if RedCloak is going to go for the SAX skip or if RedCloak's going to be safe. Since he's on this side of the room, I assume he's going for the skip. Yes, he is. All right. So that skip's pretty straightforward. All you gotta do is, after the SAX blows up everything with Power Bomb and starts to turn around, you just jump up and shoot at it, and it'll jump over you, then you jump from below, and, well, you saw it. At this point, the SAX is becoming a lot easier to deal with, especially once they get Barrier Suit, as the SAX will no longer be able to freeze Samus, which makes getting away from it a lot easier. And with the energy tanks they have at 100%, this should not be it will not be much of an issue after this point. Looks like a bit of bad beam luck there. Looks like about 3 beams. So now Red is going to fight the Mega Corax. Now, Mega Corax is a pretty interesting fight. It can be killed in as little as 4 hits, but it requires you to go through and damage boost through it and hit it with the fully charged charge beam. Now, you'll notice that he is doing straight jumps instead of spin jumps. The reason for this is that the Mega Corax is surrounded by those little mini Mega Coraxes. And if he does a spin jump, he will possibly Suedo Screw attack them and lose his charge beam, and lose his charge beam charge. And if that happens, that will prevent him from being able to hit the inside of the Mega Corax with the fully charged charge beam. And that can slow down. and prevent you from being able to hit him within 4 rounds. And now, as you can see, the ISX haven't quite figured out that Red has the Varia suit now. That's actually a little small detail they added, where that room that you enter right after you get the Varia suit, the first time you enter it, the X's will actually still try to go towards Samus, only to be mildly disappointed when nothing bad happens to her. So,
actually, if you avoid them and continue on to the other rooms, they'll still try to attack her.
She didn't know that. I'm guessing it's scripted to where, like, it's the first room you go to after you pick one up. I'm guessing that's probably... I guess that might be the trigger for whenever they go to the behavior of the other X's, where they try to avoid Samus as much as possible. So Red climbed on the ladder a little bit, took a bit of a mildly safe route there. He did run into an ouch on the way out, took a little bit of damage, but leaving through Sector 6, you have to put up with a lot of annoying enemy patterns, usually between the puffers and the ouches. So Sector 6 can be a very annoying area to get through. You gotta know how to deal with some really annoying patterns, fortunately. Especially when you have to take like an item detour to few areas. So they receive RedCloak grabbing the missile expansion right before leaving. Most runners will usually bomb that block on the way in, and then go into the hole on the way out. So a bit slow there, but that's a fairly minor thing. So now, Red will be heading to what I believe is Sector 5.
Yes, Sector 5.
And aka the fun sector, the get lost sector, the secret key sector. Sector 5 has... You go through Sector 5 a lot. I believe you have like, what is it, like 2 trips there before Nightmare?
Yes, 2 separate trips before Nightmare, and then after that is cleanup.
Yeah. So noticeably, Sector 5, when both your trips are fairly soon after each other. In fact, if I remember correctly, you literally go through Sector 5 the first time, then you have to head back to Sector 3, then you have to go back up the main elevator, do a few things, and then you go right back to Sector 5. So it's probably that's probably one of the shortest gaps in between leaving a sector and coming back. As you visit you visit all these sectors more than once, not including cleanup at the end. And Sector 5, you basically take the same route in your first 2 visits, and if you're not careful, you can forget which trip you're there for, and you can make critical mistakes such as forgetting to pick up the ice missiles on your way out, or forgetting to or just going the wrong way in general. The good thing is that as you're leaving the sector, there are certain visual cues that will tell you if you've done everything right. So if you're paying attention, you should know if you made a mistake or something, but a lot of times when you run this game a lot, there are some things that just kind of happen on autopilot. So it's not uncommon to see runners lose 30 seconds or so from not realizing that they forgot to grab the ice missiles or
run
grab the
elevators.
power bombs. And again, this sector, they will not be fighting a boss in this sector. Well, this trip. You actually do not fight a boss in Sector 5 until the last trip, before cleanup. Remember right there is only 1 item detour actually for this trip, because getting the ice missiles doesn't really help you get any new items, except maybe I think you can technically get the Ripper item, but it's faster to get it when you get power bombs. So the only item I think we'll see Red get here is there's a long shaft you have to fall down after getting ice missiles, and there's an item to the right of that shaft, that at the very bottom on the right of that shaft, that we may see RedCloak get, and that requires ice missiles. So if we see any items getting grabbed, that will be the one. But some runners have opted to wait until the second trip to get that item, so we may not see him grab it. I want to mention one thing. I don't think RedCloak did this, but whenever you're going through a door while you're charging your charge beam, if you let go of the charge beam charge while you're in the door transition, the minute you exit the transition, the very first frame, it will launch the charge beam on. This can be used in a couple of rooms to instantly trigger a gate, and that can actually allow you to get a speed booster through certain areas. You'll actually see that room that there was a very long tunnel room that RedCloak went through a while back, that he'll actually later on he'll be using that to trigger a gate and speed booster through one of the power bomb gates, or whatever they're called, one of the power bomb things.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but have we mentioned about the charge beam automatically charging through a door? No matter if you just, as soon as you start, if you hold down B as you go in through a door, when you come out the door, your beam or later diffusion missiles will automatically be charged, which can be used in a few situations to make it faster.
Yeah, I didn't mention that too as well. You don't have to worry about your charge beam does not have to be charged before you come through the door for that trick. And we're seeing Red's having a bit of trouble here getting this item. Alright, and now he has gotten the missile tank, and that should be the last item he grabs before leaving the sector. No, I think this next room is the first time we've seen the kill enemy, let it respawn, kill it again type puzzle they like to give you. So RedCloak will have to kill this enemy twice. He'll have to kill it once, let it respawn, and kill it again. And then it will finally take control of that Kago there, and he will then use it as a platform to get a speed booster. So as I said, the game loves to toss that little mini game at you where you have to kill an enemy until it forms the correct one. Technically, we did see that puzzle as well when he grabbed the missile expansion a little while ago, right before he went to that room. So notably, if you may have noticed that there was a small giant black shadow that appeared in the background while he was leaving the sector. And that's one of the visual cues. And then there's this visual cue, which is a bit more obvious. So if you were supposed to get ice missiles and you're leaving the sector and you don't see that, that's a pretty good sign you forgot to grab ice missiles. And now the runner will be heading to what is called the emergency section. And emergency is Sector 3 is about to blow up. You have like 6 minutes, I believe, to go through there. And along the way, they're going to deal with a lot of annoying enemies and have to move pretty efficiently. Now this section can be fairly difficult in 80%. I don't think Red will have much trouble since it's 100%, but you do have a timer, so you can kind of judge how good you are doing based on what your timer is whenever you pick up the major item in this sector. For this trip, Red will not be getting any items, even on the way out. The only item he'll be getting is whenever he defeats a boss at the end of it, he'll be getting the wide beam upgrade. Which brings up charge damage to, I believe, 45 if all the parts hit. Does slightly more
45.
damage.
45
Yeah.
if all the beams hit.
Does slightly more damage than the ice beam than the ice missiles will do. Now, notably, ice missiles can still be fired quicker, which is relevant because there is a boss fight that most players will actually opt to use ice missiles on because you can technically do more damage quicker with the ice missiles, even though it does less damage per shot.
Ice missiles actually do more damage than super missiles, but due to the freezing effect, you don't really see it for normal enemies.
Yeah, because any enemies that would get one hit by it get frozen first. Ice missiles do what I believe is 40 damage, while the wide beam, as we said, does 45. Now, luckily, ice missiles have no impact on dealing with the core X's, so you don't have to worry about freezing the core X or anything. Now, the trade-off is, while it doesn't freeze them, it does kind of affect them. When you're fighting the core X's, you'll notice the runners sort of try and hit them with 2 missiles at once, and this is called a double. If you can hit the core X with 2 missiles at once, it will actually do double damage. Both hits will count, but you need to hit them both in the same frame. Now, notably, every single missile upgrade that you get makes it harder to do this. I believe it causes each upgrade, the cooldown between missile fires increases and the acceleration time of the missiles increases. So the missiles take slower to get out and they widen the gap quicker too. So especially for the beam core X's where you only have one spot you can hit them both with, a lot of times you may see runners may not even opt to go for doubles once they get enough missile upgrades because it can be just too annoying to do. And now here we see Red just taking a fairly safe strat here. This is probably the best strat to do if you do not go for doubles. It's a fairly easy strat you can do there without having to worry about anything. You can actually use that strat on the first beam, the charge beam, and I believe you get used on the charge beam, the wide beam, and the ice beam at the end. Now, of those, I'm pretty sure the charge beam is the only one you can actually get doubles on it with that strategy. If I remember correctly, for the wide beam, there's not enough room for you to actually line up a shot on it with the double missiles.
I believe you can double missile plasma beam with just really tight timing and positioning.
Yeah, you can double missile any of the beams, but, well, okay, technically yes, but no one really does it for wave beam, but you'll see a lot of the high level runners will try and double missile all the other beams. But as I said, every single upgrade you get makes it more difficult to do. And Wave Beam, well, no one really goes for it on Wave Beam, and that it's pretty self-explanatory why once we get to Wave Beam.
I've been told that Wave Beam is task only, and the task itself can barely pull it off just because the timing is that tight.
Yeah, you don't have a whole lot of vertical room, which is really important when you're going for doubles. The more vertical room you have, the better it can work, because the general strategy for getting doubles is to get above the core and drop down the 2 missiles while you're falling on it. And that strategy, you don't really have the room for that strategy during Wave Beam, and so I believe you have to try a different method for getting doubles, which is pretty non-feasible for people. Now Red has left Sector 3, or well, he's about to leave Sector 3, and he will be heading to go save the animals. Now when they get there, animals are a little bit of RNG. Some people say if you save them in Super, they treat you better in this game. I don't know if that's true or not. I in fact severely doubt it's true, considering there is no way the game can even know if you save them in Super or not. So, I'm sorry, Jagger, I refute the theory. But, animal RNG can vary, and it's going to depend on I believe it depends on which frame you are on whenever you enter the room after the Shine Spark shaft. So as I said, the main elevator is finally back online. So you can go explore some of the areas you could not before with more upgrades.
My question is, how was it even repaired?
Adam said something about being repaired. That's all I remember.
The animals probably did it. Where is RedCloak going?
I think he's having a. He's thinking he's in Sector 1. He's thinking he's going to fight Arachnus.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen it before, so that's pretty interesting.
Bit of a minor mistake there. At first I thought he was going to show off the speed booster thing, but
That's what I thought as well.
speaking of that, if you saw it, there was a one of those little gate thingies I told you about. Then that's one that you can try and spark through it using a little trick and get power bombs early. But like we said, you don't actually get to use them until you pick up the intended power bombs. Now Red is going to, hopefully, if he does this right, there is a little trick you can do to get a speed booster.
Yes, it looks like he's going for it. Well, he did what I did. Running that wall.
Yeah, you gotta remember that you need to use your wide beam. And he got it if he doesn't win.
Oh.
Nah. You know, maybe I just need to keep quiet for the rest of the run. Anyway, so if that doesn't happen, you gotta climb up the hard way by freezing those stretchies when they come out to try and eat you. And now we are going to see... Ooh.
Oh, all the Edacoons ran past the door, and that's when you can tell you're gonna get some terrible RNG.
That actually was not that bad, considering all the Edacoons ran past the door.
That's true.
Usually, if you see an animal run past the door, that is almost never a good sign regarding what RNG you're going to get, but that actually was not that bad, considering he had the Edacoons run across the door.
Yes,
Realistically, that's probably one of the best animals to see run past the door. Because of that reason, they're all right next to each other, so... Now the animals are saved, and Red is going to pick up another missile expansion right before he leaves, and after that, Red will be going to Sector 5 again. Now, as I said before, Sector 5 is the sector where people get lost in, so you need to be aware of why you're going there. And for this trip, Red will be picking up the Power Bomb upgrade. Alright, so now Red is down the elevator shaft, and he will be going to Sector 5, and again, as we said, this trip will be picking up the Power Bomb upgrade. There are a lot more detours this time. He will need to pick up, I believe, I miscounted this last time, it is 3 Power Bomb expansions.
Yes, 3 Power Bomb expansions.
And 1, I believe, energy tank. Is the energy tank Mimic, or is it the Power Bomb Mimic? I can't remember which one is in this sector.
It's the energy tank Mimic.
That's what I was thinking. So there's a little Mimic for each of the items that you'll have to kill. There's like one that gives you an energy tank, and there's one that gives you a missile, and there's one for power bombs. So they're not really difficult to kill at all. So, but there's just a little thing they added in where you have to where you think you're gonna get an energy tank, and then suddenly it's a Mimic. It just changes it to an enemy right in front of your base, and the item is in the room, but it's hidden. And as I said, important difference on this trip is you can go straight to the data room now because you don't need to unlock the yellow doors. That's probably another fairly common mistake, is that a runner may start to go the route that you would go when you first come into the sector, which you don't actually have to do. In fact, I'm not even sure if it'll even let you go that way. Bit of a... Yeah, so whenever you're... Yeah, he's gonna have to wait for that thing to unfreeze if it doesn't let him climb past it. Yeah, so one little trick you can actually do here is that you can actually go in and you can wall jump off as you're falling down and land on this door up here. But it's fairly tight timing, and if you mess it up, things can go disastrously, as we saw there. You know, I said he's just one missile there was enough. So, as I said, further along this gets, the more and more energy tanks Red's going to have, and the less and less likely he's going to have to worry about anything. In fact, at this point, I would say he's pretty much 100% safe from everything. And there is a SAX encounter in this room, but you basically ignore it. You lay that power bomb there, you keep going straight, and if you have to, you jump over ice beams. Now, one minor thing that Red should have done here that he did not, you want to lay a power bomb up as close to the ceiling as possible, so these blocks he's about to destroy right now will actually get destroyed without you having to lay a second power bomb. So it's a little minor thing, and Red may have just opted not to go for it, but that's just one of those little minor things. Like I said, 100% has a lot of minor things you got to worry about. Just little optimizations here and there that can cost you time if you're not careful. And now past this point, Red will know, assuming he doesn't go back to the data room or anything, after this point, Red doesn't have to worry about getting lost in the sector because, well, the next time he comes to the sector, it is pretty clear where you need to go. Let's put it that way. Up, and he did actually... Was he too far back, or did he not? Did he just not release it during the door transition?
He might have been too far back. I think that's a mistake I had made during my race.
So if you notice, he kind of ran into the gate in that room back there, and he had to go and powerbomb the enemy gate out of the way. And there's two ways that can happen. One is you don't release the B button during the door transition, so your frame perfect charge doesn't really happen. Or if you go too far back in the rooms before, you will actually charge Speed Booster too soon, and you won't actually be able to shoot the gate out before you run into it. So either of those things can actually cause you to miss that Speed Booster there. If he had gotten it, he would have been able to Speed Boost right through that enemy, but unfortunately, he was not able to get it. Now, at this point, Red is going to have to go back to the main deck. I'm sure absolutely nothing will go wrong along the way, and he will have a perfect trip up the main elevator. Or, as like I like to call it, the most unreliable elevator in the entire Metroid franchise. And completely as expected, the elevator shuts down. Now see, strange, that time when it shut down, Samus was stuck in place. See, I just don't understand how that elevator is supposed to work. I don't think I'll ever understand how that elevator is supposed to work.
Yeah, I just don't understand how it was repaired. Who repaired it? How was it repaired?
And better question, like I said before, why is it the first time it broke down, it let Samus get all the way to the bottom before breaking down? But that time when it broke down, it just stayed in place. I just don't understand. I guess maybe it has something to do with the fact that this time the actual power went out completely instead of the elevator. But I mean, if the power goes out to the elevator, how does it really know the difference? Maybe it's just timing. Maybe the game makes it look like Sax destroys it while Samus is on it, but it doesn't actually destroy it until Samus gets to the bottom. Maybe that's it. Simplest explanation is always the best. Anyway, Red had to pick up a few items there, take a few little detours, and going to take, I believe, one more detour before fighting the Yakuza boss. Now, Yakuza is the boss I mentioned earlier, where although Wide Beam does more damage, if you are quick and fast with it, using the ice missiles is actually going to be more effective against Yakuza, as you can do more damage quicker. But you also have to be quick and on point. If you are not, then you might as well use the Wide Beam. I would honestly say the Wide Beam might actually be a little bit easier to deal with. I don't think that save was necessary, but it does help keep... It's going to be very helpful if RedCloak ever gets close to death past this point, because he is now pretty much at the halfway point of the game, so... That definitely reduces the potential time loss by a lot. So one more energy tank pickup along the way, and a missile tank pickup in this room. And after that, Red will be going to fight the boss. Now, notably, the game makes you deal with these annoying little respawning pirates right here. Those pirates, you generally, the way you're expected to do it, I think, is to kill them and go to the next level, and the pirate respawns and kill it again, but you generally do some combination of killing them at certain times and just jumping over them. And now, as I said before, he has Ice Beam. The Super Missile allows you to one-hit the eye doors, and so, start of this fight, you'll see that he's shooting up in the air, he's shooting his missiles and Wide Beam in the air. He actually is hitting something. In fact, he is hitting the boss. So whenever the fight starts, the boss shoots those flames along the ground, and whenever it does shoot the flames, its mouth is open. Now, whenever you start the fight, the boss can open its mouth. It can crawl around the screen 1 to 4 times before opening up its mouth. And if you do it properly, you still have to deal with this once. Unfortunately, Red did not do enough damage either at the start of the fight or during that second time when he opened up his mouth. So you had to go through the second phase there, but I still think it's only 2 rounds, so not really a huge time loss there. But if you do it properly, you still only have to put up with 1 round of the boss flying around the screen. Now, as I said, he's using the Wide Beam here, and like I said, this is probably the best strategy if you aren't consistent with the missiles. The Wide Beam generally does a good job of getting the debris that it shoots down at you out of the way and still doing damage to the boss. You want to make sure you hit it while it's not spinning, because if you do it while it's spinning, it's just going to take the hit. So Red had to be careful there and make sure he only hit the boss whenever it was not spinning, and I believe he got a double there. One hit away, and he gets a space jump upgrade.
Very nice sweet spot, I believe.
So now the power is back on, kind of, and Red is going to grab a few items and fight the next boss, which is Nethereye. And Nethereye, well, Nethereye is Nethereye. It's... I don't like saying this, but it's pretty much a joke boss in 100%. And granted, there is a bit of difficulty in dodging its stuff, but It is a boss that was not balanced around having 125 missiles, let's put it that way. Before doing this, he'll have a SAX counter he has to go through, and this is actually a pretty... If you've never played the game before, this SAX encounter can actually be pretty terrifying because it requires you to... It's the very first time that you as a player, if you're playing through the game casually, you're actually required to run from the SAX. Versus all the ones before this, there was a place you could hide out and wait for the SAX to leave the room or whatever. This time, you do not have that luxury. The SAX will just stay in the room until you come down, and then it will start chasing you. In fact, even if you somehow manage to make it, even if it somehow manages to avoid noticing you, it will still enter the next room after you, even if you manage to avoid it completely without it noticing.
However, once you play this game more, this is one of the best spots to abuse the SAX's AI because it's very broken, very bad.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of already saw it earlier too when they were in Sector 6 the first time. They were able to forcibly cause it to jump over you and use that to sort of skip it a little bit. SAX's AI just in general is really bad. It's one of those things where its terror comes more from the damage it does than its actual intelligence capability. And I mean, granted, it is a Game Boy game, so a Game Boy Advance game, so there's only so much they can do in those areas. Now he's going to pick up another Powerbomb expansion. As I said before, there are a ton of Powerbombs in this game. And the game definitely doesn't make you use them as often as it gives them to you. And now, Red is going to go fight Nethereye after this I-beam door. Alright, so Nethereye is pretty straightforward. He has 3 phases, including the Core X. First phase, you want to stand to the right of this platform as much as possible, so that way you can actually, the enemy on the left will not actually spawn anything. Or if these flowers that are being shot out, none of them will be spawned by the enemy on the left, and the ones on the right will not hit you at all. Once you do enough damage, it enters the plasma beam phase, and it shoots it 2 different ways. If it shoots it high, you crouch underneath it. If it shoots it low, you jump over it. And this entire time, you're basically just going to spam as many missiles into it as possible. And once you've done that enough, it goes in the core beam phase. And you can go for doubles in this phase, using the same basic strat. Try and space jump above it, drop down while shooting 2 missiles. Or you can just, like, chase it around the room and hopefully get it into the sweet spot. So now that Red has gotten that, he's going to be going on and going back to, I believe at this point, he is going to be going back to Sector 5. Now, as I said, it's pretty clear where to go this time around, as Sector 5 has pretty much changed completely because the Nightmare has came out and basically annihilated the entirety of Sector 5. And there is a giant path in the middle that Red will be taking to a new area of Sector 5. A little bit more text to deal with as usual, and And now Red is on his way. Until he gets to the next text box, which you have to go through one at the start of Sector 5, and then he will be on his way to fight the Nightmare boss. I believe Nightmare is one of the more infamous bosses for causing casual players trouble, and it can be a fairly difficult boss too, especially speedrunning if you haven't grinded it out. It was actually the one of the first big boss that I probably had a whole lot of trouble with in this game too. Once you figure it out a little bit, it becomes a lot easier, and especially, like I said, this is 100%, so our runners won't have to worry about it as much, but the boss can still really can be very annoying if you're having a hard time figuring out its patterns in its third phase. So at the very start of the section, there is a very long Shine Spark that you get to do, and for this Shine Spark, there's a few ways you can do it. You can just do the Spark method, which there's a few different tracks you can do for it. You can do what RedCloak did here, or you can actually store the Spark in your way in, and whenever you get down there, launch it. Which just said if you don't get it, you always hit the backup Spark that we saw Red do, and it takes you through quite a few rooms.
Or you could do a space boost.
You also have the option of doing a space boost.
Which is a lot more difficult. And yeah, he might have to go back for that item. Or he will.
Yes, so there was an item that Red was supposed to grab on the way in there, but he did not get to the left quick enough, and because of that, he wasn't able to grab the ledge and get into the room with the item. So he will have to backtrack a little bit later on and go grab it. I'm not really sure when the best time is to grab that item if you miss it the first time. I'm trying to determine if you pass by this area at all during cleanup. And as usual, another power bomb. And another power bomb. And another. No, just kidding. This next one is an energy tank. And there's two ways that, well, he's going to take save room really quick, but there's also an energy tank he'll be grabbing before the Nightmare fight. And the safe way is to just bomb. It's just to bomb above it, and you'll expose a little tunnel you can go through. Or you can try and grab it as you're falling through the crumble blocks to the boss fight. Waiting until you're falling is the faster strategy, but if you mess up, it's a pretty big detour to come back. Looks like Red opted to do the safe strat there, which is probably smart because that can be a pretty huge time loss if you mess up the crumble fall. And now Nightmare has 3 phases, not including the Core X, 4 if you include the Core X. First phase and the second phase are fairly similar. You basically are going to try and do damage to him by hitting his little generator down there. First phase, you do it in normal gravity. Second phase is basically the same thing, except there's more health and you do it in low gravity. And the third phase is the important one. Now, Nightmare is going to start off by going to the right here, and Red is going to unload as many missiles into Nightmare as he possibly can. If he does it optimally, we should see Nightmare's face turn red, which he did. And after this, you sort of have to lead it around the room until it comes down to a position where you can actually go in and shoot it. Now, right there, Red had a bit of bad positioning there. So he wasn't able to get it into the right position. If you get Nightmare up too high whenever he stops, you can go lower on this little ledge here, and Nightmare will actually fall down a little bit. So that'll put you in a slightly better position to deal with him, but mostly it's just you gotta figure out how Nightmare reacts to your movements and space them properly around that.
Something important to note, though, is that the last item we got from Nethereye was the Plasma Beam, which changes your beam to do more damage per frame. But for the next few bosses after Nethereye, you can only have the Plasma Beam inside the weak spot of the boss for like 3 frames, so it's worth more using missiles for the first initial bosses after Netherite.
Yeah, so they ended up changing it to where each thing of the plasma beam does 7 damage per frame, and since there are 3 parts to it, that would end up doing 21 damage for the first frame. But as Phazon said, those enemies only take damage for 1 frame, so it actually becomes a lot weaker than using the missiles. Now, later on, we're going to run into a couple of bosses that, specifically after we get Wave Beam, we're going to run into a couple of bosses that do not have that installed, and they take damage every frame. And when that happens, the beam becomes a pretty insanely strong weapon. Alright, so not much of a detour there. Red is now going back to get the item he missed earlier. He's going to have to jump over a few crumble blocks here. One thing you can notice there is that you can kind of crawl pretty close to them and expose them before you have to worry before you actually run into them. And that is a very good habit to do in this game if you're doing 100% for the first time, because the game loves to throw crumble blocks at you. I'm not exaggerating when I say there is actually a room in cleanup where it is literally entirely filled with crumble blocks.
The old Crumble City.
Okay, so Red actually he messed up his speed booster there. You want to actually store your Shine Spark after you get in between those 2 pillars. That he didn't get the stored Shine Spark too early. Because you want to get in between those 2 pillars, stop your Shine Spark up, do that, and then go back down and store Shine Spark again so you can get through the next speed booster area. Generally, you want to break both pillars, because if you don't, you have to go back into the previous room and get a Shine Spark, which is really annoying. And now we are in Sector 4 again, although it doesn't look like it. Now, for this trip through Sector 4, this is called Lower Sector 4, and it's basically completely underwater. And now, this is actually, I guess not technically the last time, but realistically, it's kind of the last time we're going to see Sector 4. Assuming RedCloak didn't miss anything, he should, by the end of this trip through Sector 4, he will have every Sector 4 item. And when we come back through here and clean up, the exit is for the next sector during cleanup is right next to the entrance into Sector 4. So you'll basically see him immediately enter Sector 4, only to leave it immediately. And that's part of the reason why we grab all the items before on the first few trips and the second trip to Sector 4, because with the exit being right there, any detour is going to be inconvenient, so... And honestly, Sector 4's items are not that far out of the way most of the time, so... Now, notably, this section can be fairly annoying to deal with at 80% because of all the damage you take from a lot of these enemies, but you can sort of see firsthand where RedCloak is so much energy that it's not going to happen. Believe Red will add that is the last. No, there's. Believe that's the last one before he grabs the fusion missiles. Should be the last item detour before he grabs the fusion missile upgrades, and then he'll have to grab a couple more items in Sector 4, and then we will be done with Sector 4 until we have the one thing where he comes back here and clean up for all of about 2 seconds. But outside of that, Sector 4 is pretty much done. Pick up one more item with the power bomb here, and then a few more after diffusion missiles. This can actually be one of the most terrifying items to get because you have to space jump really quickly. to get out of there without having to deal with any of the enemies that spawn in your way. And the enemies spawn really fast, so you kind of have to be quick in your movements there to risk not losing a lot of time. There's one thing up here that Red will need to do where if he can pull it off, you can store a Shine Spark right before this Kago that he'll run into. And if you do it properly, you can Shine Spark through the Kago, pick up the go back and pick up the missile expansion, restore your Shine Spark, and then Shine Spark up through the shaft. And I believe he got it. Okay, he fell through the transition there, but he still got the trick, so that's the best way to get that Power Bomb missile expansion there. Otherwise, you have to go to the lower area and you have to store a Shine Spark, and you have to do the Shine Spark at the end of that room, go all the way up, and if you didn't get the missile tank, you got to go back through a hole and grab the missile tank as well. Now that Red has the fusion missile upgrade, he basically has what amounts to one of the most useless missile upgrades in the game. The fusion missiles allow you to use a charged missile, which doesn't technically do any really much more damage at all, and it doesn't really do any more damage whenever it's charged, as far as I'm aware. But what it does allow you to do is whenever you shoot it, it shoots out a sort of circle-ish spear thing of snowflakes around you, and any enemy or anything that comes in contact with those that can be frozen will be frozen. This allows you to freeze some enemies that are more annoying to freeze. The first thing you saw him freeze there, actually, as he left the room, was a puffer that if you get too close to it, it puffs up and you can't get through that hole. You need for the puffer to be small, or else there's not enough room for Samus to actually get through the tunnel. So you use the diffusion missiles to freeze it from far away, as it only reacts to Samus being close, and then he got through the hole. And that's pretty much the extent of the fusion missiles uses. You can use it to destroy a few extra blocks in some certain spots, but it does save a little bit of time in a few areas, but it's definitely one of the less useful items you get in this game.
It's very useless.
Yeah. As I said, you can't skip any of the major items, so I mean, there is technically, that's not really a sequence break. There's a little Easter egg where you can technically sort of do a sequence break and skip the fusion missiles, but all that happens is you get a special text box, and then the Atom yells at you to go back and get the fusion missiles anyway. And now we will be heading to Sector 6 for the second time, and this time Red will have to fight a game console, aka the Xbox, which is just the box fight from earlier, but now it has been infected by the X. And this fight will be a little bit different from the last one in that there is water on the ground that's electrified, and he will also have to deal with lower ceiling, or what I believe is lower ceiling. Actually, no, it's not actually lower than Sector 3 one. But this time around, the box will not be shooting its lava and the lava grenades. It will instead be shooting missiles at you, which your plasma beam destroys them pretty easily, so you'll see the strat used, but it's very similar to the first box fight you saw. You can sort of see a look at the room right there, that a very small look at the room. The boss does not actually spawn in until Red goes to a room down here and triggers the game to say something along the lines of "get out." I believe its exact words are "unauthorized access," something along those lines.
I believe it's warning, no access without authorization.
I think there's an entry in there somewhere too, maybe.
No entry without authorization. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Alright, so at the start of this fight, there's two different ways you can do this. A bit slow there for Red. You can either shoot a power bomb up there, or you can bomb that upper area and crumble and expose the ladder. And if you do it properly, you will expose it as the guy's jumping, and you'll get above him and unload your first set of super missiles into him. If you're a little slow, he'll go to the wrong side of the screen and he'll start shooting his missiles at you. Like I said, just like the first fight, you gotta know your spacing. Red is having a lot of missiles here being eaten by the Xbox's legs, so you want to make sure you're spaced properly so that your missiles will not hit any of the legs and will actually hit the core. And I believe we mentioned earlier that that a lot of these bosses are only vulnerable for 1 frame from the plasma beam. This is not true for the Xbox, but in a lot of cases the Xbox will just end up eating, its legs will end up eating part of the plasma beam, so... The name of the game with the box fights is avoid hitting the legs, because they will eat anything you throw at them. And now Red has gotten the wave beam upgrade. And as you can see here, with how small this room is, it's pretty clear why doubles can be annoying, because like I said before, every upgrade makes it harder every missile upgrade makes it harder to land doubles. Increases acceleration, increases cooldown, so... But now we are going to head to the area that they said we weren't authorized to go to, because we can. You know, technically speaking, it only has red doors, and we already unlocked the red doors. Doesn't that technically give us authorization? I mean, really, if they didn't want us to have authorization, why did they just tie it to the red doors?
Then you gotta realize that gate's been locked from the opposite side the entire time. How did they let people in?
Secret passageway. I mean, they probably just came in through the exit you take. But actually, now that you mention it, I think there's a gate that's locked on this side, too. I mean, technically speaking, Samus apparently got her wave beam from, maybe she got it from like I don't know if it's like supposed to be the SAX somehow gave it to the thing, or if you get it from, or if it stole it from a data machine. So it's possible if the Federation is wave beam technology, then that's probably just how they opened the door. You know, the better question is why they don't just have like some kind of security codes that you enter everywhere instead of just shooting the doors. Personally, I think that would be more effective security-wise, but what do I know? These Federation guys clearly know what they're doing.
You mean like the security codes and corruption?
Yeah, sure. Now, you do have one in that game that you gotta use at the beginning. So this must be how they get in, because there's no gate this way. Now a better question is how they climb that shaft with the rippers. Like, that's definitely interesting.
X, so rippers were somewhere else.
So I'm not really sure how they pull that off, but we're making progress. We're starting to understand how this all works now. So along the way, Red's gonna have to pick up a few more items here, and he's gonna have to... He's going to use the fusion missiles a little bit. He's going to use it he's going to grab an item here first, but Here's where you can see the wave beam gets a little bit of use. You can, pretty sure you can kill that thing with a power bomb too, technically, but
Oh, hello, Red X.
and he can't grab it because he's got to let it.
It's
I believe you have to keep both of those alive to spawn in that golden pirate. Now, notably, golden pirates are only vulnerable from the back, but the game doesn't actually check to see if you hit them in the back. Rather, it checks to see if you're facing the same direction as them. Because logic tells you, well, if you're facing the same direction as them, that means you hit them in the back, right? No. It does not mean that. Because the beam does not travel instantaneously, you can actually go in and you can shoot it, turn really quickly the opposite direction, and damage it. And damage the golden pirates. Which we saw Red use there to kill both those pirates really quickly. As I said, at this point, this is the last boss that Red will have to deal with for the run. Well, not the last boss he'll deal with, the last boss for cleanup. And Ridley is fairly loud, so cover your ears if you have not already. Or maybe your volume's low enough. But okay, so Ridley fight. This is the boss you're talking about, where you get to see how stupidly strong the beam actually is with plasma. Because Ridley is vulnerable in all frames with the plasma beam. So if you tried killing Ridley with missiles, you'd be here a while. Missiles would actually take a very long amount of time. I'm not really sure how much health he has, but it would take a while. But as you can see with the fully powered beam, with the wave beam and plasma beam, it pretty much wrecks it. Now this is plasma beam that allows this ability, because wave beam was the last upgrade you got, so you may think wave beam is what causes the massive amount of damage, but it's primarily just the plasma upgrade, allowing it to do damage for each frame. Now, upon defeating Ridley, he is getting the screw attack. Now, screw attack is very strong in this game. It allows you to do massive damage, but, well, except against bosses, but we'll get to that. We still got a clean up section to go through. Because of how late you get screw attack in this game, it's fairly strong, but there are a few things it doesn't do. It does allow you to break bomb blocks, but as you'll notice, you're still using bombs here, and the reason for that is you have these bomb blocks where you break one of them and it triggers all the others to go off, called chain bomb blocks. You cannot break those with screw attack. You still actually need to use the beam there. You still have to use the bombs there. If you try doing a screw attack, you'll just jump over and over again. So you have to use the bombs there, unfortunately. So that's using there. There are a lot of chain blocks in this game as well. So outside of that, you'll mostly see screw attack used to break bomb blocks at this point. Now for cleanup is definitely the longest uninterrupted area of the 100% run. You have no item text to worry about, and it's just constant item collecting. Nature of the sectors are going to vary in difficulty, with Sector 6 being the most difficult sector for them to go through. Now, the most common things you're going to see are going to be Shine Spark chains, a few of those puzzles where you got to kill the enemies over and over again, and some crumble block puzzles. Those are probably the three most common ways of hiding items in the cleanup. We're actually about to see the runner go for has going to have to take two different Shine Sparks here. The first one is to go to I don't know. I think Red maybe forgot something he's going to have to pick up. Maybe not.
Maybe he was mistaken where he was.
I think that's what happened there. But okay, so Red is about to go, and he's going to have to do two different Shine Sparks here, and he's going to do one in the shaft to his right, and he's going to go for the one on his left first. There is a item at the top of the room that charge beam, and he's going to store Shine Spark into the room, and he's going to get on a hill, and whenever you come in contact with a hill while you're Shine Sparking, I did not know you could speed boost those blocks. So, okay, he did go for the right room first. So that's how you get through the right room there. You just go through and you go to the bottom of that shaft and you shine spark up and you get a power bomb tank. Now he's gonna go back and he's gonna shine spark, he's gonna store his shine spark, he's gonna space jump up and shine spark into the room, soar down another hill and shine spark vertically to expose a few speed booster blocks and pick up an item. And again, there are a lot of shine spark chains and 100% used here. Now, I mentioned before, excessive amount of power bombs and energy tanks. Right now, Red has 15 energy tanks, and he's going to still have 5 more he's going to need to pick up. So the game definitely does not hesitate to give you a ton of health. Another item here that he's going to pick up. This is actually a bit interesting because this item is actually shown in the intro movie. You can get up here with just wall jumps, but waiting until coming back maybe get space jumps a little bit faster. And that's pretty much the name of the game. The main reason we get a lot of these items and clean up is simply because coming back here when you have more item upgrades, especially when some of the items require those item upgrades anyway, it's faster to get a lot of these items. And we may see I think it's going to go for the Shrine Spark method. You can actually, in this room, there's 2 different ways you can really go through here, and unfortunately Red lost his Shrine Spark there, but you can either space boost through this room, and if you do that, it's a lot more difficult, but if you do it properly, it saves a bit of time, and if not, you basically will just Shine Spark over to, if you space it properly, you should Shine Spark and grab that missile tank that was on the middle platform, and then collide into the wall next to the one on the top left platform, grab it, go into the lava, grab that one bottom right, and leave the room. And he's going to be picking up one more item, or he's going to be going into one more room here, and then he's going to be heading back to one of the rooms you just saw him in order to exit and go to what should be, I believe, Sector 3. Now, notably, Sector 3 is one of the more difficult places to clean up. There are a few spots where you can go for speed booster techniques. And notice whenever I say difficult, I obviously am not talking about like an actual risk of death. I'm more talking about an execution of tricks. And Sector 3 is a few speed boosts you have to do. There's a few shine sparks or space boosts you can go for. And in general, it's just whenever you're in cleanup, your decision-making process is going to be deciding whether or not you can do a space boost or a shine spark for something. It's basically a giant game of picking, can I do the most optimal strat here? If I can't, what is a safe strat I can do that's still decent on time? As we saw there, that was a pretty prime example that Red went for the space boost through that hole, but unfortunately he did not get it and lost a bit of time because of it. And unfortunately he was not able to get it again. So again, this is just one of those places where you've got to decide, can I do the space boost consistently here? If I can't, should I go for a shine spark? Is there another good strat that I can do? You just got to figure out what you need to do. And that said, a lot of these strats are very, very difficult if you go for a space boost, especially once we get to Sector 6. So a lot of times it's usually just better just to go for the shine spark, because messing up the space boost can cost you more time in the long run. Now, as we see there, Red finally went for the shine spark there. And I believe he's going to grab this energy tank. There's another item up here he's going to grab. If he can get back up the hole there. He's going to have to use power bombs here, and he's going to expose a bomb chain and get one more power bomb expansion. Now he'll be heading to the lava area, the sector that we saw earlier, and he's going to be picking up a few more items there as well. Now, notably, Gravity Suit protects you from any lava damage, so he won't be taking any damage while he's going through and picking up some of these items. A few more missile tanks, going to shine spark up a long shaft here, and again, most of this cleanup area is chaining together shine sparks and timing them properly, and again, just deciding which strats you can go for without losing a huge amount of time. And notably, he's going to have to fall right back down this shaft because there is a power bomb leave on the way down he's going to have to grab, so a lot of people playing their first time may have not even noticed the power bomb on the way up and end up going all the way up and trying to go back around. So you can lose a bit of time by doing that. But since Fred is aware of where all the item locations are, he knows what he needs to do to grab each of these quickly. And again, some of these items aren't really difficult to grab. It's mostly just, like I said, like this whole area it's pretty annoying to go through when you don't have gravity suits, so. In fact, I think that's actually a wrong-sided gate, so you actually need at least wave beam to go through here. So actually, Red, he missed it by a little bit. There's actually a space boost you can go through this room if you jump properly, but it's a fairly tight window, and if you don't, there's no need to kill any speed booster blocks, so if you mess it up, you just space jump like normal through the room.
He was pretty close to it, though.
Yeah, it was pretty close, yeah, that's why I mentioned that, because he just missed it by a little bit. Well, a lot of times the hard part with these space boosts is not just like timing the first jump, it's about timing all the sequential jumps. Because you touch the ground, you lose it, you run into a wall, you lose it, and it is really easy to lose any kind of space boost you get. As compared to a Shine Spark, which is going to keep going until it hits something that it can't go through. Now at this point, Red has pretty much got everything in Sector 3. I believe he's going to pick up a couple of items right before he leaves, so there's like 2 items hidden in that room. But before he goes, he's going to pay a visit to Bob, who is no longer there because Samus picked up Bob. And right here he's going to do one last little Shine Spark in the sector. Then he will be heading to Sector 5. Which is the precursor to the terrifyingly difficult Sector 6. I wouldn't necessarily say terrifying because you're not at risk of death, but it is a sector that is very tough.
It's a very frustrating sector.
It definitely tests how good you are at Shine Sparking, I'll say that. I mean, technically there's even an easy strat for the crumble jump, but... And now Red's checking his pause menu there to see how many items he has. Now if he wants to, if he's getting towards the end of the game, he's making sure he doesn't miss anything, an easy way to check is that if you pause and then go over to the little status screen that shows you Samus' health, missiles, power bombs, etc., it'll show you all the it'll show you the max amount of power bombs you can carry, the max amount of health you can carry, and the max amount of missiles you can carry. Now health is easy to check. You don't actually need to pause the game to check your health because each row of energy tanks contains 10 energy tanks, and the size of the rows never change. So once you have the same number of energy tanks on the top and bottom rows, That's how you know you got all 20. So that's a pretty easy check, but for checking missiles and power bombs, you can check the pause screen, and the game will tell you the max amount you can carry, and if he's gotten everything, it'll say he can carry up to 74 power bombs and 250 missiles. So that is how you can check and make sure you got everything at the end. Now at this point, Red is pretty much in Sector 6. He's got to pick up an item here, I think. And then he will be going to the exit where he is going to be entering Sector 6. Now notably, you can technically go the sector, there's two different routes you can really take for cleanup, but the fastest route is to go counterclockwise, which is to go through sectors 1, 3, then 5, and then 6, 4, and 2. Now you can go clockwise, which I believe takes you 1, 2, 4, 6, 5, 3, but you have to go, if you take that route, you're gonna end up having to take an elevator, which is slower than not taking it at all. As you see here, this is a spot where Red has opted to go for the Shine Spark instead of trying to do a space boost there, because the space boost can be a pretty big time loss. So he's going to grab that item, he's going to come back around here, get the Shine Spark, and a couple of space jumps. Oops, and he lost it there a little bit, that can happen.
Oh, he almost fell through too.
Alright, now he got the power bomb. And so that room, the optimal strat there is to space boost through and pick up the power bomb he's first grabbed throughout space boosting for it, and then just going down and grabbing the other power bomb the same way that he did. But that is a fairly tight space boost to get. Now this is an item where he needs to be really careful how he grabs it. I mean really, really careful, because this item, if you try to Shine Spark vertically to grab it, you will have made a huge mistake, because you will go straight through and you will go right back into Sector 1 and have to climb all the way back to Sector 6. Now, I believe you can do a diagonal Shine Spark here, or you can do a space boost and break the speed booster box without having to actually Shine Spark up. As you saw Red do there, he space boosted through. He's going to pick up this power bomb, and he's going to go back down, and he's going to fall into a crumble block, and he will be staying in Sector 6 today. So remember, if you try to Shine Spark vertically up that shaft, you're going to be forced to take a very long detour that you definitely do not want to take.
Yes, I think of the first run I ever did of 100%, I forgot and accidentally Shine Sparked, and immediately was like, oh crap, and had to go all the way back around. And I lost a bunch of time. It's such a time waster.
Yeah, that's like one of the worst spots where you can lose time 100%. So now, I wonder if he is going to do the intended strat here, or if he's just going to... If he's going for the intended strat, I've never seen the intended strat here, so I don't even know what it looks like.
You're supposed to freeze the ouch above the crumble blocks. Like the rippers in Sector 5. But it looks like he's trying to do the unmore strat anyways.
I mean, crumble jump is not that bad. It's only frame perfect. It's not too bad. But, okay, no, he's going. He's got it. 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 Alright, nice. So that is the intended way you go for that item. The fast way is you destroy everything and do a frame perfect jump. And now there is...
The other mimic.
Yeah, is it just me or did he forget something? Or maybe not.
He forgot something. He didn't do the bomb.
Yeah,
pillar
that's
room.
what yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm not crazy, okay. Yeah, because he forgot pillar room. Maybe he's gonna go back for it. Maybe. I hope.
I hope.
Maybe
Okay.
he'll. Worst case scenario, he starts to leave the sector, pauses, and okay, yeah, he's going for it. No mistakes made today. So there's one more room that Red is gonna have to go through here, and it's called Pillar Room.
Oh.
And you got the space boost through it. Nice. He didn't quite get it. You can actually carry that space boost all the way to this item in the back, but if you don't, well, the game gives you a little puzzle here. It doesn't really look like a puzzle if you put the bombs properly, but if you put these bombs in the wrong spots, it'll actually cause a vertical pillar to appear that stops you from getting a speed booster.
Or if you shoot your beam.
Well, subsequently, by shooting your beam, you're hitting the pillars. You're hitting the triggers anyway, so...
Oh, yes.
Because the wave beam is a jerk, you just end up hitting everything. Now you want to be careful because you also have to space boost or shine spark your way out as well. Luckily the pattern's pretty simple. It's in the middle for everything except for the shortest one. The smallest platform there, you just gotta remember to put the bombs on both sides instead of putting it in the middle.
So now he should be done with Sector 6.
There, did he? Yeah, he did. He got that item. Okay. I saw it appear on my screen. Right as he, yeah. I completely forgot the exit was right here. No, don't go up the elevator. Alright, so now Red will be going to Sector 4, he will be saying hi to Sector 4, and then he will be saying bye to Sector 4.
Sector 4 has the hardest cleanup in the endgame. And goodbye, Sector 4.
That is definitely one of the most difficult tricks to pull off. If you don't get it framed perfectly, it basically doesn't count. No. So now, Red will be going to do the room that I mentioned earlier that literally is composed entirely of crumble blocks.
Crumble City.
This room is a pretty good test of how your space jumping is, because you have to keep your space jumping pretty much perfect. Or else you just have that happen, I guess. That works too. That was actually a really good recovery. It helped a bit, because it takes a while for crumble blocks to respawn, so that helps you out a little bit, but... Oh no, he had I saw what he was trying to do there, but he didn't go back far enough. He was trying to fall down the crumble blocks and then be right where he needs to be so he can space jump and grab that item, but unfortunately he started falling too soon and ended up falling into a trap. I like Sector 2 because it has some of the more, I like Sector 2 for having some of the more annoying items to grab. Difficulty-wise, it's not that bad, but it does force you to grab some of the most annoying items. Oh, almost made it. Alright, and he got it. So Crumble City is one of the more annoying places to have put up with, but it's not too bad. Once you practice it, you can get through pretty consistently, but it can be really annoying. Now, at this point, Red doesn't have too many items to pick back up now. He's going to head on his way to where Zazabi was and going to have to take a few detours along the way. Once he gets to Zazabi room, that is the end of cleanup. Like, I mean, you technically have the one power bomb, but does that power bomb really count?
No.
Exactly. So once he gets out of Sector 2, he will have picked up every item in the game except for one power bomb. And as I mentioned before, that one power bomb is really, really easy to grab. He's going to screw attack through a little power bomb gate enemy, and then he is going to go in, pick up the power bomb, and he will be going to fight the SAX. He's checking his pause menu, making sure he's got everything he should have by this point. As I said, he's already got all the energy tanks, so really the only thing he has to worry about at this point is, does he have all the missile tanks, does he have all the power bomb tanks? Now this room is another one that's fairly annoying crumble stuff. There's sort of what you may call an easy strat you can do there, where you freeze the rippers in the right spot, but otherwise you basically just have to jump over the crumble blocks. I believe there's like a few different things you can do right there, actually, now that I think about it. I believe you can even freeze the Ripper. I do not know, did he forget another item, or is he not... He didn't skip over him picking up the water missile, did it?
No, because there's two of those. Yeah, he's going back for it, I think.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not crazy.
Because there's the one missile that you can reach right after Zazabi, actually. And then there's the one underwater.
I don't think he's forgotten anything. He has definitely almost forgotten a few things, but I don't think he's forgotten anything yet. And at this point, he's gotten everything, so there's not really much else to forget at this point. In fact, I think after this, he maybe has... That's pretty much it, isn't it? Other than what's in Zazabi's room? Or what's in the back room of Zazabi's room?
Oh.
And Power Bomb?
So. Just the Power Bomb tank and the last missile tank in Zazabi's room, and then Power Bomb tank on main deck.
Yeah, the main deck Power Bomb tank is definitely a potential risk to miss. And I think he went the wrong way again. Yeah, he knows it. Okay. Yeah, so if you notice, he actually used a power bomb in this room earlier, and that's solely because there are power bomb blocks below that you can get rid of easily by just doing that. Some blocks, when they're destroyed, stay permanently destroyed, so by shooting those power bomb blocks out, he was able to just come back later and not deal with it. So now Red is going to be picking up the last two items outside of the main deck power bomb that he needs to grab. And the first one of these items he's going to get by doing a chain of shine sparks across a set of crumble blocks. Now this is another one of those items that was shown off in the intro movie a little bit.
Demo spark.
And right up here, you can really actually go high up there and do the shine spark at the top and not have to worry about actually shine sparking on that hill and shine sparking again, but either way works. And again, last little item here, just gotta do a little shine spark to the right, and he's gotten the last missile tank. Now the only thing left to grab is main deck power bomb.
No, he's missing a missile.
Oh, he is missing a missile.
It's a Sector 2 missile too. What did he miss?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question. What did he miss? Because I'm having to think here. I'm not really sure which one he missed. He got the one... Okay, I'm thinking back to the first trip. He got everything in the first trip, because there's only 3 things to grab on the first trip. The fact that he's moving with confidence tells me he probably does know which one he missed. Maybe. I honestly, I don't remember. Did he go to the right at the top of this? Yeah, he did get that one, didn't he?
Yes.
Right shaft, yeah. Oh, I know which one he missed.
Oh, I see it. I thought he was gonna come back for it. I forgot about that one.
Oh, but he sees it too. That's the one good thing, because that is a room that is actually on your map. So he's able to see which one he missed pretty easily.
I almost mentioned it earlier, and I was like, oh, he'll probably go back for it, and I completely forgot.
Yeah, you're pretty sure you're supposed to grab that unless the trip after you defeat Netterai. Yeah, but I saw the gray spot on the map, and I was like, oh, yep. It's not that room, big guy. It's the one above it.
But that shows why we get those items immediately, and if you miss them, it's basically an instant reset or a major time loss, since that room is now blocked off forever. You have to go the long way around.
Yeah, the one that he actually went to in first. Yeah. Now this one, luckily, you can go through, and I hope he does not try and take the elevator way out, because I'm pretty sure that is slower still.
It probably is.
But he may take that way anyway, because he may not be sure how to get back to the... I guess he's gonna go that way anyway. I'm like 90% sure that, yeah, that's... I don't know. It just depends how much time it takes to get back to the thing. It's not gonna lock him out of getting the power bomb, is it? I don't think so, because...
No, because it's right there.
Right, yeah, because it's in main deck. It would only be an issue if it was not in main deck. So now, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a long text box here you have to put up with.
Did he charge the Shine Spark?
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
At least I'm pretty sure he did. Unless he just dropped it at like the last frame before.
Because after this text, you have to go back on the pad, and I wonder if he'll just spark in the ceiling like I've done before.
Yeah, it's really annoying when this in any percent, because you're leaving it through a sector, so it's like, if I remember right, you're instinctively going to charge up the Shine Spark, and then you're like, wait a minute, no.
Yeah, it's right after Ridley.
Because you're leaving Sector 1, and then you realize, wait a minute, no, I need to step back on the platform, I can't do this. Here's the part where Adam gives you advice on how to blow up a planet.
And also the line that was pretty okay in the story, and then was completely ruined by a Metroid game that came out in 2010.
Just thought this line's kind of funny because Samus is like mentioning a strategy to blow up a planet, and Adam's like, "No, you need to do this instead." So now Red is going to pick up one more Power Bomb expansion, and he is then going to battle Sax, cause the station to start heading towards a planet like a comet, and then fight the final boss of the game, which is the Omega Metroid. Now, notably, these last two bosses can both be stun-locked, but stun-locking... Omega stun-lock's probably technically easier, wouldn't you say? I'm not good at mashing, so it's terrible for me, but...
I would say Omega Stunlock is a lot easier. It's really not about mashing, it's just, you just gotta get it lined up and start firing, and I've never really had a problem with it, unless I'm in the wrong position. Sax
There's actually
Stunlock is a lot harder.
He actually did not take the any percent shortcut, you may not be aware of it. There's actually a little bit of an any percent shortcut you can take that gets you in this room with screw attack, but if you don't run any percent, you probably wouldn't be aware of it because you wouldn't even go that way. Alright, we are heading to the last few bosses of the game. definitely recommend saving here. The only reason I say this, he's probably not gonna die in the boss fight, but the boss can totally soft lock on you. And if that happens, you get in serious trouble. So
Especially since I believe his last save was
Yakuza, I'm pretty sure. Maybe
Nightmare.
after. Oh, Nightmare, yeah, that's right, he saved it Nightmare. So that would be a huge setback. So definitely a good idea, especially if you have to lead like this. If you just need to complete the run like this, it's definitely not a bad save to take, just in case. The soft lock isn't likely to happen, but it can happen, so. Looks like he's going for the sunlock. Does not get it at first. We'll see if he's going to go for it down here. It's going to be really difficult to get, and it takes a pretty decent amount of practice. If you can't pull it off, you can pretty much do a backup strat by just leading the SAX around over and over again. Because the SAX will just... He sort of has a pattern he follows when he's on the ground, and if you know how to manipulate it, you can take advantage of it, do a lot of damage. And now he's in phase 2. And I think he landed the 2 hits? Yep, he did. Alright. This is the Ice Beam Core X phase, and again, I'm not really sure what led to the design decision for this, but notably, for some reason, they give you a ton of these platforms where you can just do that. Where for some reason the core does not aim properly, and you can just stand above it and abuse its AI and just kill it pretty freely. Part of me thinks they weren't aware of it, but the other part of me says it's really weird that 3 of them have platforms like that conveniently.
propulsion sequence activated. Destination planet SR388.
Alright, so now we are in the countdown. The run is almost over, and now all Red's gotta do is defeat the Omega Metroid. And get low height.
And go for Pogo.
And go for Pogo, yes. So there are a few little fun tricks you can do at the end of the game. I don't think we're going to see Pogo, but there is a low height that Red can go for at the very end here, where you go through and you basically do a low height and go all the way through to the Omega room. Also, if you can stand above Omega and keep space jumping above him, he will keep repeatedly jumping up and down trying to grab you. So it's a fun little trick you can see that happens as well, but I don't think we're going to see that because it's an annoying trick to set up. Up, he runs out of a spark just before he gets in the room. If he does this properly, he can also do a stun lock here. Just gotta wait out this cutscene. Let Sax get a few hits here.
2 minutes to destination.
And he got the stun lock, nice. Alright, and unless Red's game just randomly crashes, that is it. Congratulations to Red. He has completed the race and he took the win. His inning time, according to SRL, was a 2:18:33, which matches up with the timer. So again, congratulations to Red. Right, and I'm not really sure about in-game time guesses.
It was at least a 1:30, I think. I'll go with 1:31.
If he gets that, that would actually be a 2-minute improvement over his PB, I think. Yeah, so his current 100% PB is a 1:33, so if he gets a 1:31, that would be a 2-minute improvement. Right, so for, I believe that is going to be it for Fusion tonight. To see what I believe we have 2 more Fusion runs tomorrow, one at 1 p.m. Eastern and one at 7 p.m. Eastern, unless the 1 p.m. one might have got pushed up. Saw some talk about that getting pushed up to 12 p.m. maybe. Either way, the morning race will be Eagle versus Manitobi, and the evening race will be C Scotty W versus Phazon Knight.